All right, guys, welcome back to the workbench. So, what do we have on the workbench today? This is a 2021 Fender Squire made in Indonesia. Not Squire, Telecaster. Duh. Um, String through body. Yep. Um, I believe that's Indian Laurel fretboard. Stock pickups. So what I have been doing since I brought it home was I cut the strings off and started to address the issues. So I was at Guitar Center the other day and returning a Fender Squire, an HSS. I thought it might have been I thought it was going to probably be a good guitar, but it turned out to be a dud. So, and then, so I went back to Guitar Center, San Bernardino, returned it, and found this turd hanging on the wall, which was actually cheaper than the one that I had just returned. This was listed at 120 bucks used, and it was in very poor condition. So playing it in its worst condition, I found that this Squire Telecaster actually played better than the other one. And I like buying fun guitars, pennies on the dollar, so I figured, well, I think all it really needs is just a little love and attention. So I just recently put it on the workbench. When I cut the strings, I realized that all the tuners were completely loose. I mean loose, they were just kind of rattling in the hole there. There was one screw here in the corner that was kind of lifted off the pick guard. I was like, I think somebody was already in here. When I took off the electronics plate here and saw that this cavity was paint shielded, I was like, yeah, no way. There's no way that they would have paint shielded this cavity. And then I took off the pick guard and saw that this part of the cavity was also paint shielded. And I was like, no way. No. It's not. And then I said to myself, well, considering how people will be, I think that this would have been easy to be paint shielded. This would have been, but they probably didn't want a paint shield underneath the bridge cavity because they would have had to taken the screws out and they didn't want to mess with it. I figured, well, if this is not paint shielded when I take it off, that means that, yeah, definitely somebody has already been messing around with it. And I did. I took it off and it was not paint shielded. But I do have some paint shielding here, and so I did paint shield this cavity. Just to complete the process. And then I thought about these pickups, and these pickups are very close to microphonic, if not microphonic. The reading on the bridge was like 3.6. It was like a 2.2 K in the middle between these two, and then strangely enough, this is like a 4.6, much hotter than the bridge. I'm like, So I decided that I would try and order a set of cheap pickups from Amazon, the Falor, and see how they would actually kind of sound in here. So those will have an Alinco 5 magnets. Will it sound better? Hard to say. Sometimes I believe when you buy cheap guitars, they're better fitted with their electronics. Everything cheap working together actually may sound better than you trying to upgrade the pickups and finding that you're not happy with the way they sound because maybe everything else needs to be changed out as well. Higher quality pots, maybe a better selector, for better tone transfer, maybe even a better input jack. Everybody has their preference for what they're going to do. But for me personally, this was like a very cheap guitar. So I don't want to spend a lot of money. As long as it's a fun guitar and it plays well, then that's half the battle. Bringing it home, cleaning it up, doing a little fret dressing with the right tool. It did not really have sharp spurs at all, but I did notice that the back of the neck had been sanded. So, you know, I just recently put some lemon oil on here. Um, and it is helping a little bit, because I could tell, like, just by the feeling of the wood in the store, that it was too natural. Like, somebody really took it down to the bare wood. And when you take all of the finish off down to bare wood, you know, it's not like an EVH. It takes a long time for that wood to kind of build up, you know, a little bit of a film that makes it really, really smooth, you know, like your own hand oils and DNA. And you've seen those broken in guitar necks that are all kind of like no finish, but they're really buttery smooth. This is not buttery smooth, because the previous owner took the finish completely off, so it's actually kind of starchy, you know. It would have been better for him to leave a little bit of the finish on there and just take it down to a more of a satin kind of a feeling. But, you know, it's going to take a little bit. I'm just going to put another coat of lemon oil on there. It did help it quite a bit. Took a lot of that starchiness from the raw wood out, but it's not good, man, to just take it down to bare wood. You got to leave a little bit of that finish on there. But, you know, because it creates that sort of starchiness feeling with high gloss necks. Just that, you know, there's no finish on the wood, so your hand just kind of like, it's not the same. You know, I prefer a satin neck where it's really, really smooth. But so very little work needs to be done to this. And I'm thinking of investing in these little quick connects. You've seen them on the cheapest guitars, the little quick connect kind of things. And I think what's good about that kind of thing is when you buy a set of pickups, whether they be expensive or inexpensive, you can cut the wires where you don't really have to do any more soldering, maybe just one time. And you use those little quick connects to try out another pair of pickups. Just solder them to the quick connect and connect it. And if they happen not to work out, then you can disconnect it, send them back to Amazon, and maybe the result will be it's probably better just to leave the cheap pickups in there, because maybe they're all working together better, and so you don't want to have to resolder again. So with the quick connect little connectors, you can just, you know, quick connect them real back together real quick too. I'm going to invest in, you know, quite a few of those, and use that method, you know, rather than having to solder, resolder, unsolder, resolder. And I think it's better when you're trying out, especially with, it's easier to do that with a Telecaster, even a Fender Strat. But it would save a lot of time with having to use the solder gun to do all of that. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's the deal of the week, guys. You know, for $120, string through body, ceramic pickups, Indian Laurel fretboard, decent tuners. I had to just tighten them up. So the bodies are definitely paint shielded now, all of the cavities for sure. String through body, and beautiful paint job though, really, really tight, really, really nice. No major scuffing going on there, so I think it makes for a fun guitar. And again, if you have a simple workbench, you don't have to be a crazy YouTuber. This is not about, you know, trying to create a YouTube channel of this kind of nonsense. I'm just sharing with you the fact that I got this cheap guitar, and what can you do to make a cheap guitar even better? Having some simple tools at your disposal to do a neck adjustment, do a little fret work. You know, these are like $40, but they're really important. The fret file tools. They have the ones like this one here. You know, you get at Stu Mac, they have a very soft back sides to them, and they only have a file for the sides, but not on the top or the bottom, so you don't scratch the fretboard, you know. So very important to have that, because a lot of times if you have the wrong file, you're scratching the fretboard because you have the wrong tool. So it's important to have that, and a decent solder iron, you know, and some solder and some flux just in case you need that, and some good solder, and just some essential tools. It doesn't take a lot to get this to being even better if the pickups that you're purchasing will actually make it better. It's not always the case. So sometimes I think, like I said, sometimes the cheap pickups will sound fine for what it is. You know, you don't have to go out and spend $100 on pickups. It's just like it's just a matter of preference, really. But like the pick guard, you can get a black pearloid one that's going to be about $20, anywhere from 10 to 20. It would look a little nicer, but there's nothing wrong with this parchment here. You know, save a little money, just leave it alone. The only importance of a guitar is the playability. That's why this guitar is here. In its worst condition, I actually was able to play this guitar and have some fun with it in the store. So I knew by bringing it home, I can do just a little extra work, and it would even be a better guitar, just a fun guitar. And I'm all about having a good, fun guitar. This Fender Squire, I think pennies on the dollar, you know, what's it gonna cost? So not even about $160, I guess, in and out with the new pickups. I've done nothing else but just addressed the dry fretboard, hydration, you know, very simple thing to do. You know, get some of that. You know, F1 oil does wonders for the fretboard. Rub it in there, wipe it off. It works great, man. It really brings, this was very blanched, very, very dry. The fretboard was unbelievably dry. So I figured, yeah, I said to myself, I'm going to bring this turd home. I'm going to give it some love, and she's going to be a fun guitar. Is it going to be my number one? Well, absolutely not. But, you know, eventually I'll probably sell it and give somebody else a chance to have a decent guitar. And it'll be a better playing guitar than they'll ever find at Guitar Center for that price point. And I can verify that it would be a winner chicken dinner, guys. I'm gonna put some hybrid Ernie Ball Slinkies, 9 to 46, a little thicker. Still have a little bit of work to do on that, just some fret marker stickers. I did finish the fretless guitar. I got it all kind of dialed in now. So this has been you know what, I'm going to call this neck the garlic bread neck, because it's got this very, very D-shaped neck profile in the back with this super flat top, like a piece of garlic bread, French bread. It's definitely got a French bread type of neck, where it's got a really flat neck. I mean, really flat. It's got like no arch. So it's probably a 16 or 17 inch radius, because it's just super flat. So it's kind of weird playing this guitar. Really, it's kind of weird. But it does remind me of a piece of French bread. Now the Steinberg tremolo system, see that chip there? I did that because the whole thing kind of slipped out of my hand. But this is a very interesting guitar in itself, and I struggled with this one because I don't know anything about how this thing worked. This is a big piece of metal in here, by the way, guys. This is a big honk of metal in here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me get the better light on it. But there's a big ass spring behind that screw that creates tension, and there's also a little lever there that kind of locks it in place. So you can have it floating like a regular tremolo, or you can have it locked down, which I thought was very, very, like, that's an awesome design. And then there's this huge spring back there in this cavity down that at the center of it in the bottom that creates the tension for the tremolo. Other things that I found out about this trem is I was wondering for the longest time, how in the hell do these saddles stay in place? I was like, what the fuck? How do they do that? Until I started like taking off the strings. So the way you take off the strings are you loosen it, this comes out, and then you push it forward, and then there's this little cavity in there that kind of slides up in there, as you can see, and the strings kind of fit on the flat side of the ball and fret string. They fit in there, and then the way once they get in there, you just tighten it down and it pulls the string, because they're dual ball end up there, both dual ball ends. I think that's a really, really nice design. I like it. Now when it came to the saddles, yeah, I didn't realize that there was a little pin over here, a little Allen key screw right there. Let me put it over here. You can kind of see it. See that? So, I didn't realize that that was creating the resistance for all of these to remain in their place. Until, like a numbskull, I applied some pressure when I was trying to figure out how this whole trem worked, and I pushed it free, and they all just were sliding everywhere, like. And had I had it in a different position, they just would have all fell out, because there's nothing to hold them in this position. There's nothing underneath them to hold them in their position. There's only the tension of this one screw that pushes a resistance in such a tight space that they cannot move up or down, left or right. And so I didn't know that, but that's a trip. And how you can adjust the bridge contour is with these counter things. You can actually create the diameter, or however it is. They're all flat, so I don't even know why this is higher. I mean, there's a very slight radius to the neck. And so how you set the radius here is there's a screw here and on the opposite side. So this kind of teeter-totters it up or down on each one of them. And how I did that was it was hard to keep this in place without the string tension. It was very, very fragile, and I didn't realize that it was important to kind of keep the old strings on there and probably do one at a time. Because once you take off all the strings, this becomes kind of unstable with the tension of the spring underneath and how it sits in. Like there's these little the posts are hidden underneath here, and it's got these two little teeth that grab the post. Not at all typical. There's nothing typical about this bridge at all. Nothing. And this dates back to 1988, so decent, really nice pickups, uniquely designed with the toggle switching, humbucker on or off, middle on or off, bridge on or off, so you can have any one of those varieties all on, just the bridge right here and neck together on, and have the middle off, so you can have your kind of crazy configurations here. Now there was an interesting capacitor on this coil tap. It said something about a blend, but I didn't really hear a blending going on. I'm not sure if that thing kind of wore out. I mean, it does function as a normal tone knob in its position down here, but when it's up, it does add, strangely enough, a little variance in tone. But it's probably best just to leave it down. But it's a cool guitar. Now this body weighs like, I want to say it's just as heavy as a Les Paul. This body weighs a lot. It's awkwardly heavy, the body. I learned that it was African mahogany. This body is really, really heavy. So having it here on your lap, it definitely is snug here in your lap, but it just feels awkward because, you know, it's a little bit of a workout just to hold it by the neck. This is a heavy body. It's probably 8 pounds, this body. I wish I had a scale to weigh it, but I don't. So, 1988, this thing came out. Yeah. Super cool. Steinberger system. Under license. Yeah. So, based on the serial number, it's 1988. Interesting guitar. I'll do a video on this later, but anyway, that's all I got to share for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Give it a thumbs up, make a comment. This is an unofficial guitar YouTube workbench kind of thing. Just sharing my life with you guys. All right, have a blessed week and always take care, guys.